Hey, this is Lisa Danforth from Remote Working from Home, back with you with Etienne Morris from Morris Recruiting and Consulting. We're doing the extended training on the short little one that we had earlier, and she's talking about maximizing impact of your resume's experience section. So stay tuned and listen to all the amazing things that she has to share, because in these times, really, updating your resume is probably going to be very important. So I'm going to hand it right over to you, Etienne, and let you pull up your slides and share your.
Great. Super. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, here we go. Sharing now. Okay. Are we all set?
We are all set. We can see it.
Great. Okay. So what we're going to work on today is just the experience section of your resume. One second. Not moving forward. Here we go. So what to include in the experience section. So for some people, it's very simple. You know, they have professional job experience, and everything else just falls into some other category, and so it's a no-brainer. But for others, there are things that I'd like you to consider that you may want to include, or perhaps. In any event, so what you may want to include. So what to include. You've got full and part-time jobs, both intern and externship summer positions. Obviously, this is more geared, that one would be more geared to somebody earlier in their career. Volunteering work can sometimes be part of the experience section. If the volunteering work that you're doing is that you're actually doing a job that in other cases would be paid for. So something here could be like if there's a break in your work history, and what you did during that time was work as the CFO for your church, or did all of the accounts for some other organization in your community, you could include that in your experience section. Even though it's a volunteering, even though it was a volunteering position. Military service can certainly be part of this. Self-employment consultancy, absolutely, and family business. So some of these things can be fillers for when there was a gap in your resume, which really isn't looked upon that harshly anymore, not like it was, you know, even 10 years ago. But some of it may be legitimately time that you spent doing these things, and they are legitimately, they can be legitimately represented in the experience section. So these are the options, some of the options that I give you permission to include in that section. Alternate section headers. This gives you a little bit of an idea about the categories that these are. So obviously professional experience is typically the most used section header for experience. You could also split that experience up into, like, maybe you have professional experience, and then further down in your resume, using your reverse chronological order, you have a related experience section. Or maybe you have two different fields of experience. I've worked with people who were both writers and had clinical experience in psychology. So we separated those two things out. All of their writing experience was in one section. All of their clinical psychology experience was in another. So it wasn't like a mishmash of things just because it fit into a reverse chronological order on a resume. You could split it out by internships, sometimes early experience, you can say. That would be, or clinical experience is another example. So those are just some examples so you can understand how you can divide the experience section up on your resume, or categorize it in a way that you feel best represents you. Then which details and why. This is what I talked a little bit about in the little 2-minute video Lisa and I just made, and I'm going to expand on it here. So at a minimum, you want for the experience section, you want to include a company name, a city or state, or province or country, depending on where that was. If it was a remote position, you can write remote. Sometimes if you were all over the country, but there's a corporate headquarters, you can include the corporate headquarters here. So whatever you feel best represents your relationship to that company and that job. Position title with start and end dates, because sometimes you get promoted within a company and you have many positions. So you would have the umbrella as the company name, and under that you'd have your various position titles with start and end dates. That's an important thing to include in your experience section because it shows growth within your field. And then overall dates of employment. Position title is asterisked here. I'll give a little homage to it, even though we talked about this in the short video. There is no such thing as resume police. So if you do not like a title that you've been given in the past, you can change the title on your resume. What you want to be careful of is to make sure that that you still provide accurate and true information. So I advise my clients to parenthetically give themselves the title that they feel better fits their time in that role, or you create the title that you want and you parenthetically refer to your actual title, as an aside. But you can give yourself your own title. I worked with a woman once who was office manager, and she was not getting any leverage for CFO roles. And when I met her, I'm like, tell me about this office manager title that you've got. And she started with a company when it was 8 employees, and was there through the growth phase for 12 years, and it was like 350 employees in multiple countries, and she was the CFO of this company. And I said, what's up with the office manager title? She's like, well, I was the office manager when I started and we just never bothered changing it. That is a very drastic example of what I'm talking about here. So she can call herself CFO. She was CFO of an international company with hundreds of employees. And then parenthetically, we said office manager on her resume. So that's my little story that I hope stays with you and gives you encouragement to create your own title if you feel that your title is not descriptive enough. Additional details. Company description is a very important, often overlooked piece of a resume. It provides context. I will say that it's very easy in some cases to go to the about page of a website and pull up a sentence or two on a company description, but you still have an opportunity to use company description even when you are working for a very well-known company. So IBM and Apple come to mind as examples. I said in the little video, people have to have been living under a rock not to know who Apple or IBM are. However, what you can do in the company description is use that space to describe the division or the department that you work with within that company and what their mandate was, what they accomplished. So it might be, with Apple, you might be working for the new technology division in charge of projects that are slated for to go live 10 years from now. That provides context in terms of what you're doing for that company. The role description, I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. You don't want any boring, of course you did that stuff, so you're a I don't know, a restaurant server and you serve food at a restaurant. We know that. But what you can say in a role description are all of the things that were part of the role that you do that would be surprising to other people, or would provide context to other people so that they understand the scope of what your role was. So for instance, instead of just saying I served food in this very simple example, you might say that that it was, you've already talked about the restaurant perhaps being 350 seats. So the role description would be that that you are, that you serve food in, or that you were a server in a restaurant that had, 150 covers, 150 covers every lunch with an average check of $25, which gives context for people in the service industry to understand that it was busy. That the average check number was high, which meant that that was probably quite a bit to it. It wasn't just like a serving one and done. It provides context. Role bullets you want to reserve for things that are remarkable or quantifiable, things that are what I call bullet worthy. And the reason why there's a separation between description and bullets is because you've got different people reading your resume, and they've got different ways that they collect and sift through information. So if you've ever known people who are all about the context and the story, and they're very narrative driven, those people want to see what the role description is, and then they will get further color with the bullets. Other people are, just the facts ma'am kind of people, and they might be a typical example of that are what you might consider most of the engineers that I've met in my life tend to want very succinct pieces, bite-sized pieces of information. So you can give them those bullets of information, and then if that is of interest to them, they will of course go to the role description. So you want to be giving there are typically about 8 different people, up to 8 people, who are reading your resume to decide whether or not they want to engage with you. And you have no idea what their style of information gathering is like. So in a resume, it's nice to give a little bit of different styles to different people, so that you're providing them with information in a manner that is easy for them to digest.
Etienne, could I just
Yes.
ask you to give like 2 quick examples of bullets?
Yeah.
As opposed
Absolutely.
to the full description.
So here is an example that I did for a scientist who's turning into a software developer. So he was doing a mid-career pivot. He had just done a capstone project at Burlington Code Academy in the program, the 3-month program they have there. His original example of his experience for Burlington Code Academy was in a big text block. I mean, it is a bullet, but that's just how, but it's really, in my world, that's just a text block of a paragraph that happens to have a bullet. In the modified, or the newer version, the version that we worked on together, what I did was created a sentence. From everything that he wrote, we pulled out the sentence that describes what he was doing as a software developer. And then we pulled out 3 specific bullets that, to somebody who would be hiring him as a software developer, that they would be interested in, that would be germane to them understanding what his capabilities are. So utilized Open Modix Cloud API. So that we've got a little nod to some technology there. Created database using InfluxDB, and why he used that. So again, another technology piece. Intentionally created a modular structure to allow for future expansion and innovation. So again, it speaks to his decision making in terms of the technical project he was working on, and gives some context as to why he did something the way he did it.
That's great. Thank you.
And
That makes it much more clear.
Yes. Here's another example. He worked as a technician.
I don't think we need a second example.
Okay,
if that's
great.
okay. I just want to make sure that these are bite-sized
Yep.
pieces for people.
Absolutely. So then the projects, if applicable. So if your work, and many of you are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, if your work is project-based or has been project-based, there is a big opportunity for you to include project-specific information in your experience section, either in a very abbreviated form, or you can even create a project's addendum. And the types of information you want in your projects.
We're working on close to 20 minutes here.
What's that? We're close to 20?
Yep.
So in your projects, you could either embed it in your resume. You can have it as bullets in your experience section. You can have a distinct resume section, or you can have a project-based resume format or a resume addendum. And there you just want to be collecting like information project to project, and share it so that people have some context as to the work that you did, and how it could potentially help them. Because the purpose of a resume is to build bridges between the reader and what they need, and you as the potential employee and what you have done.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And did you want to go back? I think there was one more on the...
There is one more, which is the skills summary. And this is, you could have a skills summary for your experience section. Instead of doing it in reverse chronological order, you can kind of create more of a CV style resume. And that's if you've, for instance, if you've had the same job or the same type of job over the course of your career. And so each experience section, each experience for the job piece would look identical. Instead, what you could do is flip it and talk about the skills in the same way. Have a skills summary, the bullets to describe the specific things that you did within that skill format, and then at the end you would do an abbreviated experience section where you would sort of bundle all of your jobs together without all of this detail. And that's more of a CV style, a curriculum vitae style, which is a skills-based resume versus a reverse chronological resume, which is more common in the United States.
This was super helpful. Thank you, Etienne,
You're
very
welcome.
much. So if you are during this time really looking to sort of dust off the resume, update your resume, please, actually, Etienne, do you want to share your slide with your information on it as well?
Sure.
So if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to Etienne, she does this professionally. If it's something that you've been meaning to do and now you actually have the time to do it, now is definitely the time to sort of just use the tips that Etienne gave and really lean into updating that resume that you have. And here is how you can reach out to Etienne. And Etienne, do you have one actionable step, one or two, that everyone could take right now to?
Yeah, so what I would do is take a look at your current resume. Think about the ways in which you can use it. It's not just for job searching. You can use it to position yourself for a promotion within your organization. You can use it. I've worked with a lot of clients on that. Director level that are going for a C-suite, or a C-suite that's going for the CEO. Also, you can use it if you want to apply to boards, to be a board member. There's a lot of paid board opportunities out there for C-suites at various companies, and your resume can be used as a tool to help you get there. So don't think of it as a static document. It's a living document, and it should represent you fully. In a way that you're proud of. If you're not proud of it, then we're doing something wrong, and you should take another look at it, because all of us have something to be proud of with the work that we've accomplished.
This is great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, everyone. Thanks, Etienne.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.